Hi, I'm Hi, I'm Eric.
Hi, this is
I
Eric.
mean, I'm Dan. Eric. What's up?
How's it going?
It's going pretty good. How are you?
Good. We freaking nailed the intro, so
Yeah, I just want to let everybody know that we planned that too. Like, that was completely 100% scripted. That
uh,
entire thing.
that's true. My line was, "Hi, I'm Eric."
Yeah. No, but actually, I kind of thought to myself, I was like, it would be pretty funny if it was one of those things where I mess up, where I'm like, hi, I'm Eric. Oh, wait, hold on. I'm actually Dan. Made sense to me at the
I
time.
think you got it. People
Exactly.
still don't know which of us is which now. So,
Yeah, which that'd be great. Like, which voice is whose?
yeah.
So,
uh,
Eric, how was your Christmas, man?
Weird, but all right. Yeah, it was all right. Zoomed with the family and stuff like that. But we watched a lot of Christmas movies, just the good ones, you know.
Well, what are the good ones?
uh, I would say my favorite is "It's a Wonderful Life." I think it's really actually funny, which is kind of not how old movies usually work. Like, usually it's like, oh, I guess I can understand that used to be funny or something. But with It's a Wonderful Life, I think the performances are really cool, and I just think it's an odd movie. And then we watched Scrooged,
That is,
which,
I was just gonna say that is my favorite Christmas movie.
yeah, for me, it's my favorite because Christmas Carol was always my favorite part of Christmas because, like, I'm a horror freak. And
Sure.
so it was like, even though Christmas is boring and stupid, at least I'll get this one horror movie out of the deal, like one scary story,
You
all about ghosts and shit.
you
So,
you really think that Christmas is boring and stupid?
uh, it's just a little goody for me. Like, I don't think I'm a negative person really, but like I can only take so much like sweetness and being, I don't know, people acting different for a season. I don't know. And everything's all hunky dory, and all the pictures are people at the dinner table filled with food by a warm fire. And I don't, ever since I was a kid, I was just like, this is a bunch of BS.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially when you found out that they were lying to you about Santa Claus. I mean,
Oh, wait, what?
do you remember when you stopped believing in Santa Claus?
uh, totally.
Yeah, no, me too. It was actually I was in first grade, and some asshole who was friends with me. I mean, I don't even remember his name. Probably I'll never see him again in my life. But he was he was a fellow first grader, and he decided Santa Claus wasn't real. And I
Huh.
don't know how or why. I don't know if like maybe he had parents that just didn't celebrate Christmas or whatever it was, but I started following him, and I was like, yeah, yeah, Santa Claus, Santa Claus isn't real. And I
Huh.
remember like the teachers, um, they were, we actually like kind of got in trouble for like saying that. Like, I remember, yeah, it was like first grade, and I remember um, they were just like, you're breaking your parents' heart by saying that. And
You should have been like, they fucking know
well,
what
no,
I'm
that
doing.
that was that was like, I was like, yeah, good. Like they didn't give me what I wanted for Christmas this year. You know what I mean? Like, and there's no way Santa Claus would have gotten me that piece of shit, whatever it was. So I actually was glad that I was breaking my parents' heart.
It's like the stepping stone to adulthood to kill Santa Claus. It's like I was a little kid and then I realized Santa Claus was bullshit. Now I'm like on my way to being a tween or something. And it just, I don't know. I always thought that was funny. It was like, So I have to be open to Bigfoots and shit, but I can't believe in Santa Claus. Like why does everyone want Santa Claus to die? Why is he the one that we all have to ultimately not believe in? You know?
Yeah, that's a very good point. A very strange way to look at it.
Um, I overshare sometimes too. So.
Sure. No, but I
Sorry
like
about that.
No. That's okay. That's okay. I am gonna make one confession, and a lot of people like really don't like this for some reason. I don't think they have a problem with me, but there actually is quite a bit of Christmas music that I like. And I know a lot of people, the whole consensus a lot of times is like, oh my God, I got to put up with Christmas music for the next month or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a part of me that definitely agrees with that, but then there's another part of me that is like, well, some of this Christmas music is like really cool. I know it's not a Christmas song at
Right.
the heart of it, but Canon in D, what is it? Canon in D major or something like that. Do you know what I'm talking about? Canon in D minor. Do you know the Dr. Octagon album by any chance?
Which album? Sorry.
Dr. Octagon, the
Yes.
Cool Keith record. It's
Yeah.
okay. You know that little skit that he does, I Got to Tell You, where he's like, I got to tell you, and he's talking about he's like, if you want to call me for any rectal surgery,
Oh.
and all this stuff, and then he's like, you can call 1-800-PP51-DOO-DOO. I'm in your corner. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, so that song is sampling the
Okay.
that is a horrible rendition of it. But anyway, that's kind of been adopted by Christmas in
Oh, okay.
a large part because of Trans-Siberian Orchestra.
Right.
And I love that song, and it's not because it's a now basically kind of a Christmas song or whatever in some people's minds, but even the Christmas version I like. What's that?
You know what's funny though is like I would say that Trans-Siberian Orchestra has like made like metal fans open to listening to Christmas music.
Oh yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
But I bet very few Christmas fans have started to listen to like technical prog metal.
Yeah, no, I doubt it. That would be.
Not many people are like, man, I wish Trans-Siberian just played like not Christmas songs. I'd listen to that.
Don't you wish the media would do a survey on that? Like, so that way,
Yeah.
like, that would be the news that we're like reporting. Not any of the stimulus bill stuff.
I hope shit gets boring enough for that to be the news.
Yeah, exactly. Where it's like, oh yeah, record number of Christmas music fans, really got into Dream Theater and Blind Guardian this year.
Yeah. Is Christmas bands an actual demographic?
Yeah, Christmas fans.
I'm pretty into Christmas.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's probably a true thing. I mean,
Yeah.
there's people that are really into Christmas, man. Like, I remember one of my old bosses, one of my old jobs, like, he literally, I mean, he started putting up Christmas decorations the day after Halloween every year.
Yeah.
And, I mean, he went all out. Every year he actually took out, and then also I know people who actually would go to, like, the bank and get loans for, like, Christmas presents.
Wow.
I mean, it's just, there's some insanity definitely surrounding
That's for sure.
the Christmas holiday. But yeah, so yeah, well,
How was your Christmas?
well, you said that your Christmas was weird, and but it was okay. It was fine, right?
Yeah.
Well, mine was completely normal and terrible.
Oh no.
I'm just gonna say that. No, I'm just being a smart ass. No,
Mine was actually terrible, but I didn't want to be a big buzzkill.
no. It really was fine. But it really was kind of completely normal, other than the whole, you know, pandemic thing that's going on and whatnot. But I mean, aside from all that, it really was just kind of a normal Christmas because
It's awesome.
we did exactly what we always do, which is cook a meal and watch TV. We also watched a couple of Christmas movies. Actually, we watched a couple of Christmas movies. Christmas Vacation, which in my opinion that's definitely like a classic.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, do you think so?
I love it.
Oh, okay. I thought for some reason that really sounded like a sarcastic. Really.
No, see, I have this. It's never been diagnosed, but I have a condition where I sound like a smartass, and then when someone asks me if I'm being a smartass, the more I try to refute that I'm being a smartass, the more I sound like a smartass. It's terrible. So no, I really, really like Christmas Vacation.
Have you been to the doctor for this?
Unintentional assholism?
Yeah, because I might actually know some people. But
being sarcastic.
Well, it turns out that I have the same condition, Eric. I'm talking to some people about it. That's what I was talking about.
Yeah, I'll take a referral.
Okay. So we'll definitely figure that should be the episode name, is unintentional assholism.
I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
Feels real to me.
Yeah.
Christmas Vacation.
Christmas Vacation, Scrooged, which you mentioned. Christmas Story.
Mm-hmm.
And then me and my dad have been watching this show that at first I didn't like it because I don't think I wanted to like it, called Yellowstone.
Okay.
Have you
heard of it?
Okay, yeah, it's got Kevin Costner in it, which I don't know. I don't know what people's feelings are about Kevin Costner, but I actually kind of like him.
I think he's all right.
Yeah.
Why not?
I mean, he's not. He's kind of like if Nicolas Cage was a little bit better. Yeah,
that's true.
That's kind of how Kevin Costner. There's that movie that he did with Ashton Kutcher called the Guardian that I really like.
Oh yeah, I've never seen that one.
Yeah,
either.
It's pretty good. He plays what's that? When people drown, the Coast Guard. He plays like a captain of a Coast Guard, and Ashton Kutcher is a student to become a Coast Guard. He's in training. Yeah, pretty good movie. But anyway, so let's move on to what this episode is really about.
Okay.
So we are going to be entering a new year this Friday, January 1st, 2021. And, of course, there's a lot of things that are going to be changing in the year 2021. New administration, possibility of the COVID improving. I mean, like you've said before, Eric, look on the bright side. That's all we can do,
we don't have much of an option, so
Exactly. But 2020 brought, of course, a lot of horrible, weird things, but it also brought a lot of really, really great things, as life tends to do. And some of those things happen to be in the form of new albums and music. So we're going to be doing a two-parter here, because Eric and I, we both, every time that we've, I met you probably in the mid-90s, early 90s, something like that. And I think it's safe to say that every single time that we've ever had an interaction, music has been a part of that interaction, one way or another. Yeah. And so me and Eric, we both we listen to a lot of music, new and old. So we're going to do a two-parter where we are going to talk about the new albums from 2020 that came out this year on today's episode. And then next week, we're going to talk about the albums that we discovered that weren't released in 2020. And some of them as old as the 60s and 70s, 80s, whatever. Because Eric and I also, we dig for music, as a lot of music fans do. And a lot of times we discover things, well, I'm 40, and you're what, 43, Eric?
Yeah, let's go with that.
Okay. I'm sorry, I probably shouldn't have said that.
No, I'm just joking. I'm 44.
Okay, 44. All right, so good guess. Do you want me to edit that out? Because I really could if you really don't want your age to be told. But
no, I'm all right.
Okay, sorry about that, but not sorry. It's part of that condition that we talked about.
Right. Oh, I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry. Like that Kids in the Hall skit where he's all like, I would like nothing better than to sit here and chat with you. Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember it, but it does sound accurate.
Okay, all right.
It sounds comparable.
Anyway, yeah, I love Kids in the Hall. But anyway, so best of 2020.
Yeah, you want to go first?
Do you want me to go first?
Sure.
Okay. I'm starting things off. Okay. Now, how do you want to do it? Do you want to do I do one, you do one, or do you want me to just, should each of us just do our complete list?
Let's go back and forth.
Go back and forth, okay.
Yeah.
And then also, I think we should also talk about our, like, runners-up. You know what I mean? Or what did I call them? Not runners-up, honorable mentions.
Yeah.
We should do our honorable mentions.
I got to tell you, I did not get through all of your honorable mentions.
That's fine. I didn't even... Same here. Same here with you.
I listened to some of them, though. So,
okay. All right. Yeah. I think you're doing better than me with the honorable mentions, because I'm not sure if I even got to your honorable mentions.
Oh, man.
But
That's probably better than my real picks.
Well, I plan to. So don't get me wrong. That's not like me being like, oh, this list is lame. I'm not going to check honorable mentions. Are you kidding me?
But we are going to have a playlist available, right?
Yes, we are going to have a playlist.
Spotify. So Spotify. Even if Dan or I haven't checked something out from each other, we can look at that.
Exactly. So, yeah, when I upload this episode, which should be later this week, I'll also make a playlist of songs from 2020 that me and Eric discovered. And then next week, I'll also have a playlist of the old stuff, the new old stuff that we both discovered.
Cool.
Okay, you sure you want me to go first?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so the year 2020, I mean, I want to preface this by saying that, it started off as a really rad year, actually. Like, January and February looked like really, it actually looked like good times were ahead. Who knew that we were going to get hit with what we got hit with in March? Yeah. And the reason why I bring that up is because one of the first things that happened in early January and February is one of my favorite bands of all time from high school, Mr. Bungle, reunited. Not with the original band that played on the demo, but with the three founding members. So technically, I guess it is the original band.
For the most part, I think.
Yeah, the three founding members, Mike Patton, Trevor Dunn, and Trey Spruance. And they brought Dave Lombardo from Slayer and Phantomas, who's, played in countless projects with Mike Patton already. Phantomas, Dead Cross.
Yeah.
He's also got a really underrated project called Film, spelled
Hmm.
Philm. Have you heard that, Eric?
Oh, I've never heard that.
So really, really great.
I really like Lombardo's drumming though. On everything I've heard, he's
Yeah,
always a standout.
he really is. And then Scott Ian from Anthrax on second guitar, which that made me really excited because I'm also a huge Anthrax fan. Um,
Yeah, for
so
sure.
when I heard that, I'll be honest with you. At first, I was kind of put off by it because I was like, so they're getting back together to play a demo that was released in 1986 that they recorded when they were in high school.
Right.
And I sort of was just not, I don't know, I wasn't too hip to the idea at first. But
Hmm.
then I saw the streams of the live shows.
Hmm.
And that was the beginning of the year. That was fucking awesome. Where I was like, okay, Mr. Bungle's going to drop a new old album, if you will. And 2020 is off to a great start. And those
Yeah.
live performances were amazing. So, but back in February of 2020, it wasn't for sure that they were actually going to go back to the studio.
Oh, right.
I think it
Yeah.
was kind of like, honestly, I think those shows were kind of testing the waters of the material.
Yeah. I remember that now that there were live performances you could watch, but there was nothing released yet.
Yeah, there was nothing released, and they hadn't recorded anything yet. But then
Right.
I think what they figured out was that their chemistry worked very, very well.
Yeah.
Now it's really easy to just sort of be like, and this was kind of where I was coming from with it. I'm like, so they're going to release a thrash album when
Yeah.
they put out. This is the same band that put out California, Disco Volante, and the self-titled record. And I made a lot of mistakes thinking, because I guess I always thought that Bear and uh, Danny Heifetz were original members, but
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that they weren't. That there was an old drummer by the name of Jed Watts that played on that demo, The Raging
Okay.
Wrath of the Easter Bunny. And I actually went back and listened to that demo, like on YouTube.
Hmm.
And man, the recording is of course really bad, but it adds to the charm of it.
Yeah.
So anyway, then it was announced, I think over the summer, they started teasing on their Instagram that they were going to be recording a new album, or at least new material. First thing they put out was a exploited cover, "Fuck the USA,"
Right.
which I listened to and I was like, oh man, so just doing a punk cover. I hope that they do more. You know what I mean? And it was pretty. It was a good cover. I'm not familiar with the exploited, but it was great. I mean, I was just glad to hear something new from Mr. Bungle. You know. Then it was
Right.
announced that they're re-recording the entire demo with that lineup, and that it's going to be coming out on Halloween. And I was like, hell yes. So on Halloween, I fired up my Spotify and I listened to that record, and that is my first pick, Mr. Bungle, The Raging Wrath of the Easter Bunny demo. So this record again features Mike Patton, Trevor Dunn, Trace Bruance, with the addition of Scott Ian from Anthrax and Dave Lombardo on drums. And it's just straightforward, kick-ass thrash metal. I mean, it's definitely like a lot different than the 390s Bungle records. But I mean,
Yeah.
at this point, I mean, let's face it, Mr. Bungle has nothing to prove. And also, what changed my mind about, my initial reaction at first is that I read somewhere or heard somewhere, I don't remember, that the reason why they decided to do this, the reunion this way, is because number one, they didn't feel that the music on that demo got the attention that it deserved. And they were really proud of it. It was the first thing that they recorded in high school. And secondly, Mike Patton was just like, well, we could have gotten back together and we could have just done like California in full or something, you know? But
Right.
that's how everyone does a reunion. And we just thought, well, how could we do a reunion and make it stand out?
Sure.
And luckily, we're a band. He said, you know, that Mr. Bungle's a band that has this odd history of starting out as a thrash metal band and then, you know, evolving into a ska circus metal experimental Naked City type thing to whatever, some deranged deconstructed pop band on California.
Yeah.
And so to hear Mr. Bungle go back to their roots 30 some years later, it was nothing short of astounding. And it's just a really great, really great thrash metal record. So, I mean, if anybody who's into like, you know, early Anthrax, Slayer, any of the big four, Voivod, Death, Possessed, I mean, even like stuff like Venom. I mean, this record is for you guys. It's just straight up. Now, my favorite songs were the opener, Grizzly Adams, which is a really nice, brooding instrumental. Raping Your Mind, which I believe was their first single. Bungle Grind. I mean, those are all, the whole thing from beginning to end is just fantastic if you're into that. So that's my first pick.
Yeah, I listened through your list, even though I'd already heard this 2 times. I listened to it again, and I came away feeling better about it. Like how you described your first kind of opinion of the whole project.
Yeah.
I would say I was still there even before this week.
Sure.
Like, I was just kind of like, I never listened to the original demo for 3 reasons. The first one was, if you were a Mr. Bungle fan in whatever, 89, I think maybe the first record came out, 90, there was no way in shit you were going to find this tape. And it just was not going to happen. So super hard to find, super terrible quality. Like when we finally did find it, Chuck Moore found it, and we listened and we were like, what the fuck is this, you know? And then also it just wasn't what I liked about Mr. Bungle. What I liked was kind of the goofiness and sort of like experimental elements of it, and especially when we get to Disco Volante, you know? So, and then I was kind of like, oh, and they just recruited like these other dudes or whatever. But then listening to it this week, I sort of like let it go a little bit and just like, let's listen to this with fresh ears, you know? And what I found was, I thought it was really well performed. I thought it was nice to hear Dave Lombardo's drums, which are always technical, but never like, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Stationary?
Sure.
Like they never just sit there like most thrash drumming does. Like he always, you can tell there's a human being playing it and that he understands the dynamics of rhythm, and it's always enjoyable. And Scott Ian's rhythm guitar, I mean, it's just, it could be argued that Scott Ian's rhythm guitar is the best rhythm guitar in all of thrash. Like, it's so chunky and chuggy, and it really is, it separates itself from the other groups at the time in thrash, but also just across the board. I mean, you can just hear it. It's like, I don't know. It's just, it's almost, I don't know if he has a really good noise gate, but the way that he plays is like almost, it's on or off. It's almost binary. And I think that's amazing. And it was really cool to hear it in this context with basically someone that's doing beyond a thrash vocal. Like, this is almost like black metal vocal most of the time.
Absolutely.
You know? And so what you have sort of at the end of all of that is sort of just like really like party thrash, like Municipal Waste, or like even Anthrax, like
Yeah.
Exodus or something like that. It has a little bit of a bounce to it. You know, it's not all just gloom and doom and abrasiveness like you get out of, well, like Slayer, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I thought it was really cool. And I really enjoyed it. And that's a long way from where I started, which was like, I don't even understand why they're doing this, you know? And so I'm glad that you put it on your list, because it gave me a chance to like kind of give it another shot and listen to it without the biases that I had all the way back to 1990, basically.
Well, yeah, and I mean, it's really difficult, I think, to really sort of get excited about a new Mr. Bungle album in this way at first.
Right.
When you're familiar with the 3 albums that they put out. I mean,
Right.
because, I mean, let me be clear. I mean, this is a great album and on my list of favorites from 2020.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll never touch, in very few things, not just a new Mr. Bungle album, but very few things is going to touch the 3 Mr. Bungle albums. Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
like, Disco Volante is one of my biggest inspirations, as is California, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, and as is the self-titled album, too, in fact. I mean,
Yeah.
so it'll never come close to that. But one of the ways that I started to appreciate this album was to just kind of listen to it as like, okay, this is its own thing in 2020. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And yeah, no, I couldn't ask. I'm just glad that Mr. Bungle, that those 3 guys, Mike Patton, Trace Bruins, and Trevor Dunn, are playing music together right now.
I think it's great.
I think that's awesome. I think it would be great if they put out another album. Who knows? I mean, it's
Right.
hard telling. I think it would be great if maybe they started to incorporate some more of those strange elements from the 3 albums from Warner Brothers mixed with what they were doing on Raging Wrath of the Easter Bunny, and see where they go from there. See if they can go from there. You know what I mean? Who knows?
Yeah.
It's
For sure.
I mean, the future is a blank canvas. You know?
That's true. I would if this were to lead to new Bungle music, I'd be pretty stoked on that, and I would understand its importance and appreciate it. You know, and I think I do on some level. But honestly, if it did open the door to new music, it would be a really important stepping stone. You know.
Exactly, and you know maybe this is kind of their way of doing that, sort of being like, hey, you know what? Let's revisit this material we already wrote in '86 when we were teenagers that we still are proud of and still love, that the world never really got a chance to hear.
Yeah.
So that's, I don't know. I think that's great. All right.
Yeah.
So let's move on to your first pick, Eric.
All right. Well, okay. I have to preface this with a couple of things. I don't know anything about these bands or groups or artists compared to Mr. Bungle.
Sure. Sure.
So I'm not going to have a lot of background and things like that. I maybe a little bit, and honestly, I'm probably not even going to know very much at all. It's hard for me to delve into artists the way I did when I was younger, like to know everyone they've worked with and who produced the record and what other groups they're in and stuff like that. Like, I just don't have the mind for it anymore, I guess. I don't know for sure. But like, that used to be my favorite thing, would be like, name all the side projects of Mr. Bungle, you know, like, but my brain just doesn't work that way anyway anymore now. And so, yeah, so I just wanted to preface that. And also, this is going to sound really weird and out of left field, but I will tell you there's a form of synthesis, okay, on synthesizers. All right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's sort of like FM synthesis, which is frequency modulation. And that's what they use to get sounds like strings and bells and crap. Okay.
Gotcha.
Then there's this other form of synthesis called carpless strong. And what it does, it's like it takes a sound and then it filters it and it adds a little bit of like delay to it, almost like a ring modulation. All of this matters only because it makes the sound of like a harp being plucked, essentially. The sound of bum, 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 kind of like that.
Yeah.
The only reason I mention that is pretty much every album on my list features that sound.
Yeah.
And prominently. And I don't know what my hang up is with it, but honestly, if someone just has these little drips and drops of sound in their music, it just does it for me.
Sure.
And so with that being said, the reason I mention it is because we're doing the playlist on Spotify. You're going to listen through the stuff that I pick and be like, what the fuck, man? Like, seriously, all this is like dripping water and vocoders. Like, that's every album. So I just wanted to give everyone fair warning that
sure.
That's my hang up. And that most of my stuff will have elements of that. So
sure, yeah, no, you definitely had some interesting picks, that's for sure.
So I think if we're gonna let's try to stay as close to maybe Bungle's sound as we can, or at least the construction. So my first choice is by an artist that goes by Fire Tools, and that's FIRETOOLZ, Fire Tools. Their record's called Rainbow Bridge. They're a Chicago-based artist. They go by Angel Mark Floyd. I'm probably saying that wrong. But I actually got to see her perform here in Iowa City last year, or maybe the year before. Actually, it must have been at least a year or two ago now. But it's an amazing show. The music, I'll start with that, I guess, I think it's very eclectic and strange and mixes a lot of elements, but it's not so much like Mr. Bungle where everything is like so sectioned off. It's not like, here's some death metal and then here's some circus music and here's some jazz or whatever. This is sort of like, I would say that it probably falls under like vaporwave or mall wave music. It sounds kind of like the music that would be in the background of a Windows 95 instruction disc or something, you know?
Yes.
It sounds very much like 90s public domain music, which is all really weird. You know, it just really sounds like that kind of music. But then we have a lot of glitch stuff with the beats, and then a lot of grindcore elements with the drum beats and with the vocals. The vocals come in and it's like straight up grindcore / black metal vocals over this seemingly ridiculous public access type music, you know? But then the way they mix it together, it almost becomes really beautiful in its own weird ass way. I feel like there's a lot of joy in it at moments, but also a lot of suffering, and you can hear that, I think. And it's like, but it's again through this filter of like this ridiculously upbeat mall music, you know, like Muzak. And so you get this really weird, interesting sensation from listening to it, which I have had a hard time pinning down how it makes me feel, which is almost a prerequisite at this point with me in music. Like, if I can listen to it and it has a goal and I know that goal and it accomplishes it, I'm kind of disappointed. Like I kind of want to be thrown for a loop and not understand what I'm hearing, you know, and have to find the meaning myself. Because the artist, they put it out, they made it the way they wanted it. It's not really up to me to be like, oh, that sucks, or I don't get that, or whatever. It's up to me to figure out, what is this? Why does this work? What were they trying to accomplish? And so Fire Tools, in that sense, I think really makes you work for it. It's challenging. But I do think it's very fun at moments too. Like the balance between those kind of ridiculous sounds and that really intense suffering grindcore vocal, it's really a lot of fun. Back to the show, though, like I said, I saw her perform here, and they had a screen behind them that had like glitch video production, which I love glitch video stuff, but it was like so perfectly synced that I was beside myself. I used to drink, I think, back when this, and I probably had a number of drinks, and so that probably helped. But it was probably one of the coolest shows I think I've ever seen. And it was just one person playing a laptop and a guitar with a screen behind them. And it blew my mind, and I still honestly can't figure out how they accomplished it. So the song I really liked on that one is called Prayer for the Abuser. And I think I picked that one just because it really encapsulates the whole sound. It's almost shocking when the vocals come in. And like I said, I think being shocked by music is sort of a goal for me at this point. So anyway, yeah, Fire Tools.
Yeah, man. I gotta say, man, when I listened, because one of the things that Eric and I did was we listened to each other's picks.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta say that this pick, it had absolutely no shortage of just intensity, and at times I didn't know what the hell I was listening to, but in a good way. It always kept me on the edge of my seat, wondering what's going to happen next.
Right.
And the way that I would describe this release, and see, I don't know much about, I've heard the term vaporwave, I've heard the term mall wave, and things like that. And of course I know what Muzak is, and I know what, that kind of aesthetic is. But the only way that I can describe this, and this is a long description, is it sounded like black metal performed, at times black metal, I should say, performed through the filter of some weird, like, 80s or 90s. And you bring up the 90s Windows 95 public domain music. That's actually very accurate. Of like some weird 80s or 90s Japanese anime movie, which is...
Yeah, for sure. I can hear that. Absolutely.
Then performed through like the filter of like something, I don't know, dubstep, new age,
some of the glitch stuff.
Glitch,
for sure.
Yeah, new age music. I heard a lot of new age influence in there. Break beats. The way that the glitchiness of the beats, the break beats, that was mind blowing to me. And then there's also like influences, I would say, from like jungle music, techno, and rap.
Sure.
And there's 3 tracks that particularly stood out to me, and I'm glad you mentioned Prayer for the Abuser, because that was actually the one that caught me the most as well.
Yeah.
And also the opening track, Gnosis Oozing.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just like, talk about ripping your face off. And then this one is more for the title, but craziness of the song itself was great, and that's the follow-up track 2. It's now safe to turn off your computer.
Right.
I really, really like that.
Yeah.
This was a killer release, man. Like, and this is something I'm so glad that we decided to do this because I
Yeah.
never would have thought twice about checking out something like this. Like, you know what I mean? Like I never would have even. This probably wouldn't even exist to me if it wasn't for your recommendation, Eric. This
Well, the
is
other thing too is if you would have started that first track, you probably would have been like, "What the hell? Seriously? Like,
exactly.
this is terrible."
Uh,
Like,
it was
because you
great.
don't know what you're hearing quite yet.
And
You know?
I can only imagine the live performance. I didn't know you saw her live.
It was mind blowing. Chris Wearsama, I think, brought her to town for the Feed Me Weird Things
Oh
series,
wow.
which is like, I mean, I don't want to fanboy out or anything, but Chris's recommendations and the shows that he's brought to Iowa City are just, it's mind blowing. I can't say enough good things about Chris and Feed Me Weird Things.
That's
And
awesome.
I'm blanking on it. The other big festival.
Mission Creek.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, he brought freaking Black Moth Super Rainbow here last year. Like, that's outrageous. They're like one of my favorite bands ever. And it was actually the last show I got to see with my friend Sean. So it was just outrageously cool. And yeah, I can't say enough about Chris. But I never would have heard of this without him bringing them to Iowa City, for sure.
It's amazing.
I wouldn't have found this either. So that's the thing is like, someone always has to tell someone else about something, except maybe Chris. He apparently knows of every good band in the world.
Yeah.
Other people have to have someone to help them kind of find new things. I
yes.
especially
Absolutely.
have a hard time finding new things. So
Absolutely. Okay, so move on to my second pick then. Okay, so this one is I feel it kind of like Mr. Bungle doesn't really require a lot of explanation. I don't know how to pronounce this band name 100%, but I'm just gonna go with one of two ways that I think one of them is the right way, and that's either Koriki or Karaiki, which that cracks me up because Karaiki makes me think of the Crocodile Hunter.
Yeah.
Crikey! Crikey!
Maybe it's a tribute to him.
Yeah, maybe. I think it's Koriki though, or I think that's what it is. But anyway, this one doesn't really require a lot of explanation because I think most of the people who are Fugazi fans are, gonna know about this one. But I don't know. Maybe there's not a lot of Fugazi fans that listen. So just in case that might be so, this is a new band with Ian MacKaye, which that is the proper way to say his name. I've been saying Ian MacKaye for years, but I guess I guess MacKaye is the right way to say it. Just like I've been saying Guy Picciotto or something like that, where I guess it's like Guy Picciotto.
I don't even know who Guy Picciotto is.
He's the second guitarist in Fugazi.
Okay.
The other singer. Well, actually, they have three singers because bassist Joe Lally, who was also in this Crikey band.
Let's just go Crikey.
Crikey. But anyway, he. Okay, so this is the backstory to this. I think because I'm sure that this band is heavily related to the Evens, which is a group that Ian MacKaye was in with his wife Amy Farina. They were a two-piece, and in that two-piece, they Ian plays a baritone guitar, and then Amy plays drums. Really good. They released 3 records. The self-titled. No, wait, not self-titled. Get Evens, and I don't remember or maybe it is self-titled. I don't remember. I know that they got a record called Get Evens, which I thought was kind of.
That's good.
Yeah, that's a good one. But there's 3 of them, and I'm having a hard time remembering. I do think that the first one was self-titled, but I could be wrong about that. It's been a while since I've listened. But anyway, so they put out 3 records. And then Kroike, or Kroike, is Ian and Amy Farina with Joe Lally, who was Fugazi's bassist. And so they're a trio. And the music is somewhere between Fugazi's last album, The Argument, and The Evens. I mean, there's no surprises here. It's not, they're not doing some crazy, like, glitchy Fire Tools Windows 95 public domain music album or anything like that. Or some black metal album, although it'd be fantastic to hear Ian MacKaye do a black metal album. But or maybe it wouldn't be fantastic, I don't know. But yeah, man, this is just kind of the logical progression of a new album from these musicians. It's great if you're a fan of Fugazi, if you're a fan of the Evens, if you're a fan of just the Discord sound in general. I think you're gonna like it. It's really clean guitar, really. It's a little bit more melodic than, of course, Fugazi. Even though The Argument, they kind of started to get a little more melodic than their previous albums, but it definitely has like a warm tone, warm kind of feel to it. And I'm gonna have to say that my favorite track is the opening track, Clean Kill. That's the one that I would, it's the first track, so if you're going to listen to the record, that's going to be the first thing you hear. But yeah, from beginning to end, I just think this is a fantastic record and definitely one of my favorites. And a lot of that has to do with, of course, and you know this, Eric, my just passion about Fugazi. They're one of my, I have 60 favorite bands. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but Fugazi is at the top. I mean, Fugazi influenced everything and changed. I mean, it gets cheesier and cheesier when you get older to talk about how music changed your life, But Fugazi really did, because they were the first band that I can say that made me pay attention to the DIY way of doing things.
Sure.
Which I think they were that for a lot of people my age. Makes sense. But also they were kind of the first band that I heard that really did like the whole, I can't really think of a better way to describe it, but jagged sort of sound or tone. That sort of, I don't know, like playing music, playing the guitar, but not really playing chords.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
With angular work?
Yeah, angular. That's the best way to describe it. Like Ian and Guy were not really playing like your standard chords, hardly ever, in Fugazi. But then backed by an amazing rhythm section, because Joe Lally and Brendan Canty, to me, are one of the best rhythm sections in rock and roll, period. Hardcore, indie, punk, or not, doesn't matter. Like, I would put them up against some of the greats, you know what I mean? And in my opinion, you know what I mean? Because to me, they are one of the greats. But like, I mean, they had a huge effect on the way that I wrote music. I mean, I think anybody who, knew me when I was like, 17 could attest to that, because all of a sudden I'm playing those non-chords. You know what I mean? Like, all of a sudden I'm interested in, playing, I'm more interested in sounds than I am actual music theory, Things like that. But Fugazi found a way to meld like a certain sense of melody in with it, and harmony that I think a lot of other bands that were doing that style really weren't able to do, or really didn't do. Like Fugazi did it so differently. I don't know if you've ever seen the documentary Salad Days.
No, I haven't.
It's about the DC hardcore scene. Somebody was talking about, there's a part where they talk about like the 90s alternative music boom, and they talk about like Fugazi. And they say that really at their heart, at the heart of Fugazi, what they really are is a great arena rock band. And I started thinking about that, and it's like, really, that's kind of not too far from the truth. Like, if you really think about, like, I mean, obviously they weren't an arena rock band. They weren't Aerosmith or anything like that. But there's no reason why they couldn't have been. And I'm glad that they weren't. I'm glad that they chose not to be. But those songs are really anthemic. I mean, Waiting Room.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they play that at baseball games in D.C. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, that's weird. It's weird. Ian MacKaye was asked about it in an interview, and he's like, "Oh, that's weird. I didn't know that." I mean, that's really
that's cool.
Really, really interesting. So yeah, Karaiki or Koriki or whatever it is, great album. I would definitely recommend checking it out.
I really liked it too. I'm not as into Fugazi as you. Actually, I'm not even into Fugazi as much as most any person you would find at any show anywhere. It's not that I don't like them. I love everything I've ever heard by them. I just haven't put the time in, to be honest.
Sure.
And it was always funny because, it's always funny when someone tells you something you're working on sounds like someone else, and then you've never heard that something else.
Yes, that's happened to me several times.
It's really hilarious. Like, I think somewhere online someone compared my new record to Galaxy 500, who I've never heard. Ooh. And I always thought they were like a cock rock band, dude. Like Fu Manchu or something.
No. Whoa, that's actually like a very accurate comparison.
That's hilarious. Yeah, because but it happens to me all the time. And it's like really important shit too. Like where I just think that it's not, that one band is a different band.
So
like I just think their name, I'm like, oh, that fucking band, blah, blah, blah. So, not knowing that it's super important. So anyway, sorry for that little
No, that's okay. I'm sorry for going off about Fugazi, but hold up. So you've never heard Galaxy 500?
No, I've never heard of.
Dude, I highly recommend listening to just one album from them.
I listened to one song because I was like, why are they comparing me to this seriously like Alabama Thunder pussy band? That's what I thought they were like for real. And so I listened to it and I was like, okay, I can sort of see it. It's slow and vocals are high and it's twangy, I guess,
I really only like one album from them, and that is the album called Today.
Okay.
That record, I would highly recommend checking it out, Eric. I think you would like it, and I think you would also find out why people are comparing you to that. Because honestly, that slipped my mind. Like, that's actually a very accurate.
I don't even remember why I brought that up. It was something to do with getting compared to things that you've never heard.
Absolutely.
Because my brain is stupid.
No.
Yeah, I've never really listened to them, but everything I've ever heard I really like. I just haven't, like I said, I haven't put the time in. But, what I hear in this a lot, though, and I've always heard it in Fugazi, too, is a lot of Minutemen influence.
Absolutely.
And I think it personally sounded like that's a little more on display in this project than Fugazi, even. Because I don't ever think from the Fugazi I've heard that they were scared of melody by any means. but it's almost like they're embracing the melody on this one. You know, like they're it just seemed a little more melodic and calmer and like a little like they let the songs find themselves a little bit.
Yeah.
Uh, which actually reminded me of Black Mountain. If you've ever listened to Black Mountain,
Yes.
Moments in it kind of reminded me of that. So I'm actually going to probably talk about Black Mountain a little bit later. I swear I listened to more bands than just Black Mountain. But if you had to pick one band, I don't know, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I really like how bass driven it is, which Fugazi was like that as well.
Well, if you listen to real quick,
yeah,
a quick note about the melody thing. Have you heard The Argument, Fugazi's last album that they put out?
No, I haven't heard it. No.
Okay, if you listen to that album, I think you would understand where the melody kind of comes from a little bit more, like because the direction that they were heading in with The Argument, I think was like almost like the almost like the prelude to like the Evens, which I would recommend checking that out, and to like this Crikey. There's a lot of stuff on here that reminds me of that last Fugazi album, but the Minutemen that's a very interesting comparison. I would agree with that 100%.
Well, for me, mostly it's they have this way of this is going to sound like I'm being negative. I swear I'm not. Their harmonies are not accurate harmonies.
Oh, absolutely.
They're generally off key, which I am sure is on purpose for Fugazi. But I don't know if it was on purpose for the Minutemen. Yeah. I kind of feel like they just couldn't sing together.
Well, it's funny you say that because I read a review of a Fugazi record. I think it was End Hits, which was the second to last record they put out. And the reviewer was like, honestly, can this band please just release a bad record so that way I can start actually making fun of Ian MacKaye and Guy Picciotto's voice?
Right.
Because honestly, because literally every Fugazi record is a banger. I mean, it's hard for me to pick. They're one of the few bands that I can honestly say has never made a bad record, And so,
yeah.
But it's like, and that's coming from like a band. I mean, there are bands that have way, way better singers and harmonizers, like you're saying.
Oh no, but that's the thing
and that's
the one thing I really liked about Fugazi the few times I've heard them.
Exactly.
That I just thought that was such an interesting thing, and it is really pretty in its own way. But like, how are you gonna go from Minor Threat to the Everly Brothers?
Exactly.
You can't just have it be really amazing harmonies. Like, you have to add that degree of tension and dissonance in order to still convey your passion or anger or whatever it might be. Like, I'm not saying people that harmonize can't express themselves. I'm just saying you're kind of locked into it at that point, where this sort of off-key harmonizing, it adds a layer of dissonance to it that it I don't know. It really, like I said, my experience is pretty limited, but the one thing I truly always liked was just how much bass was on it, how bass forward the whole thing is, and those off-key harmonies. It's just awesome. And all of that is just really on display on this record. So I think it's awesome.
No, absolutely. And it's interesting, too, that you mentioned where do you go from, how could you go from Minor Threat to the Everly Brothers? One of the reasons why Minor Threat broke up, I guess, is because everybody in the band wanted to become a more commercially viable band. And so they left a note on Ian's doorstep that basically had a list of demands of, what they wanted to accomplish as a band going forward. And I guess supposedly, according to Our Band Could Be Your Life, that book, I guess that they were starting to write some new material that started to sound like U2.
Wow.
So it would have been interesting if Minor Threat would have stayed together and been like, okay, let's do the major label thing. You know what I mean? There's a really good chance that if Ian wouldn't have rejected those demands, that Minor Threat would have gone in like a commercial direction, and we probably would not know anything about them. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, because honestly, like, they probably would have been that classic alternative rock story, you know, sign a major label and put out a record, and who knows, maybe they would have been wildly successful. It's interesting to think about stuff like that.
Yeah.
Either way, I'm glad that what happened. You know?
Yeah, it was a really good pick, though. I like that one a lot.
Cool. All right, so go forward, Mr. Eric Whitaker. Eric Whitaker. I was going to write a song about you, actually, at one time.
But the last name didn't rhyme with anything, so you just had to give it up.
I think the chorus was actually going to go Eric Whitaker, but, like, I didn't really want to use your name because I thought that you would have found that weird.
No, go for it.
Well, no, it was a moment of, like, kind of like where I was just like, this guy writes really, really great songs. Like Gimpy with Sparkles, or it was probably in response to like Gimpy with Sparkle. You know how much I love that song Party. So,
yeah.
I still love that song.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
I listened to that not that long ago, and I was not as ashamed of it as I usually am. So,
dude,
that's a good thing.
I still love it. I still love that whole record. It still makes my playlist in the van on a semi regular basis.
Wow.
So yeah, no, I'm not shitting you at all, dude. Not shitting you at all. Anyway, sorry to get a little awkward there, Eric.
So I guess my next one, I got to be honest, my first choices and my honorable mentions are almost completely interchangeable.
Okay.
I don't. All of them are equally on my list, but
yeah, that's same here.
So the next one I'll pick is by Earth Eater.
Okay.
It's one word, Earth Eater. The record's called Phoenix. Flames are dew upon my skin. So this artist's name is Alexandra Drew Chin, from New York, I think, probably Brooklyn, I would guess. But they go by Earth Eater. Again, it has a lot of those drippy, plucked harp kind of sounds. I would even go as far to say that this record, musically, for the most part, might be neoclassical. Like, it has a lot of classical elements to it. But it also has a lot of ambient sound. It has a lot of noise elements. It jumps around a lot. It lulls you into like these moments that are really mellow, and you could almost think that it was really accessible, regular music, but then something will glitch out, or a vocal will become highly affected or changed. The singer actually does have a 3-octave range, and you can hear that throughout, but then they do have a lot of other things that are affected and changed. I again, one of my prerequisites for music is sort of like that it has to be pretty challenging. Like, I want to go into it and not understand not only how they constructed it and created it, but how they wrote it and performed it, and the influences on it and where it came from and everything like that. If all of that can be called into question within a song, then I think that that somebody's really doing a great job and really pushing the boundaries. And I would say for sure this record pushes the boundaries. Like I said, I would say it's almost classical for the most part, except that it's not. It's an illusion. And it's funny because the cover, the performer, the aesthetic of the whole thing, the visual aesthetic of the whole thing is almost like, I don't even understand it, like hip hop almost. Like if you look at the cover, you'll be like, ooh, what the hell? Why is this guy telling me to listen to this? Like it looks sexualized and stylized and like pop or hip hop or something. But the cover, who cares? It's like what's on the record. And what's on the record is really beautiful, poignant, insane music. So the song I really liked on that one is called Below the Clavicle. I think that it shows pretty much what the rest of the album has to offer, with the exception of some of the longer ambient noise pieces. But definitely shows off the classical element of it and definitely the vocal performance and range of the artist. So, Earth Eater. I don't know. What do you think, Dan?
Well, I listened to it, and I got to say that it was a very like Fire Tools. It's nothing like Fire Tools, in some sense, but in another sense, like where you're talking about the challenging aspect of the music, there were parts of it that definitely reminded me of that sort of approach that you got to take to listen to something like this. I really liked the sort of like, again, like folky new age parts of it. I think there was some really just gorgeous, beautiful music on this.
Yeah, for sure.
And it put me in mind, even though I don't think it sounds like these artists, but I think you could kind of compare them to like something along the lines of like Joanna Newsom.
Sure, I can hear that, especially with the harp sounds.
Yes, and like Chelsea Wolfe.
I don't know Chelsea Wolfe.
Okay, it just the ambient sort of like, I don't want to say noise because it's not noise music at all. It's like,
for sure,
definitely has that, like you said, classical. It really puts you in the mood. For me, this is the type of music that I would put on if I was like in the mood to chill out. You know what I mean?
Right.
To like just sort of I'll come out and just say it. This is not something that I would listen to every day by any means. It's not, some people would. Some people love this kind of stuff, and are passionate about this kind of. I have friends that I think would probably make this a daily listen on their playlists, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's not something that I would listen to every day. That being said, though, it was so fascinating that after I listened to the first 2 or 3 tracks, I didn't want to shut it off or anything because I just wanted to know. It's like Fire Tools, and I guess not to compare those two at all, but like, because they're two totally different things. At the same time, though, they both have that sort of adventurous feeling to them where it's like, what's next? What are you going to do next? What are you going to bless my eardrums with now? And so while it's not necessarily something that I would listen to all the time, it still was a very fascinating, enjoyable listen. I mean, it was definitely like a great pick. I could see why you were mesmerized by it, as was I. And it just really, it's one of those records that doesn't make sense, but makes sense both at the same time.
Right. Yeah, I think so too, for sure.
Very interesting stuff. By the way, I also like the name Earth Eater.
Yeah. It's so weird though, right? If you saw that record in the store, you looked at the cover, right?
Yeah.
It's basically like a lady, and I assume that's Earth Eater.
Yeah.
And she, I think, might have little nub wings or something, but has very strange hair.
Yeah.
And looks like maybe something out of the movie The Cell or something.
Yeah,
they're just like shooting sparks up her hoo-ha.
My first impression was that it was going to be a doom metal album.
Right, and then it's called Earth. Exactly. Like you can't make out what you're about to hear, and then the second it starts, you're like, "What the hell? How is this?"
Some of her her voice too in parts. Again, this kind of goes back to the Joanna Newsom sort of thing as well, but where she really got like these like high octaves in her voice, like she really got to that. It almost also put me in mind of like Devenger Banhart a little bit, like that. That's sort of like, I guess like the way that I would describe this record would be like freak folk new age or something. Like I don't really know. Like it's such a record that's hard to really pin down.
Well, see, and it's funny because I have been listening to a lot of music in the last year or two that seemingly was unconnected. All I knew is like I said, it had this water drips kind of thing, super effective vocals. Sometimes it was hip hop, like Young Lean.
Oh yeah. The I know who you're talking about. The
like,
Poison.
It's that like band rap, It's just like, but the music's all like flop, flop, flop.
Yes,
and just
very
really
drippy.
Weird. And he's sitting there just talking about being drugged out and a scurv, essentially,
depressed,
which is great on its own level. And then at the end of my year, my Spotify Wrapped or whatever, it said my favorite genre was escape room. And I was like, what the hell is escape room?
What the hell? I've never heard of that at all.
Right. And I still don't know what it means, but somehow it encapsulates all this stuff that like just has real glitchy electronic vocoder-esque vocals, beats, like glitchy beat, this sort of harp washed out mellow element to it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how it's a genre, but apparently that's all I listen to. So
wow.
whatever.
Yeah, and that's that Young Lean, that's that Poison Ivy.
Yeah, he has a record out this year that I almost put on here too. I really love it. It's as I get older, I realize I'm never going to be able to relate with most of the musicians that I listen to anymore.
Yeah.
So for me, like, I don't want to listen to some 20-year-old who's just on drugs and like super depressed and all into self-harm and shit. Like, I just don't I can't relate with that or whatever. I'm not going to relate with almost all of these people, to be honest. Unless someone starts putting out records about like petting their cat while they watch Netflix, like I'm not gonna relate. So, I think that's kind of the big thing is I don't have anything in common with almost everyone I listen to, and that's good because who cares?
If only we could get the 20-year-olds to think like that about the 40-year-olds. Like, well, I'm never gonna relate to any of these drug taking rappers that I'm listening to, so maybe this 40-year-old who's singing all about inspiration, right? The question is are the 20-year-olds going to be into the 40-year-olds that are rapping about self-harm?
Well, I don't know.
we should find out.
Yeah.
Like, make a fucking, like, 40-year-old rap duo. See what happens.
Self-harm is just eating, like, a large pizza.
Dude, that would be the name of the rap duo, Self-Harm.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it.
Sound good? All right.
Yeah, I'll make some beats tonight.
That sounds freaking awesome, and we'll just rap them to the best of our ability. Well, actually, I mean, we can just use the.
I think we should call it Sell, like SELL Farm. FARM.
Self-Farm. Normal.
Yeah.
Dude, Eric.
All right.
When people are able to actually get together and like start jamming again, I am dead 100% serious. We should start a band called Cell Farm.
And it's gonna be 40-year-old hip hop.
Well, it doesn't have to be 40-year-old hip hop. That was
okay.
that was
All right.
that was half serious. But like, no, for real though, Cell Farm. That is.
I would have expected talking about Earth Eater to make us start a band. Like,
dude, there are so many possibilities, Eric. For real though, let's keep that in the books.
All right. I already designed a logo just now.
Awesome. You know, dude, we could actually just do it even like over the internet. Starting out. For real.
Okay.
Anyway, so this podcast is the formation of our new band. But anyway, okay, so where were we?
I think you were about to take a turn.
Oh, yeah. That's right. I was going to take a turn. So this is my third pick. Wow, we're already at my last one. We're at our last ones now, aren't we?
Yeah, unless you want to do one honorable mention as well or something like that.
Yeah, or I mean, I could list off all of my honorable mentions and just like, I don't have to talk about my honorable mentions. I would just say, or just quickly, because I have like 20 honorable mentions.
Yeah, I kept it to 3.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Yeah, that's right. I guess I probably should have just kept it at 3. But part of it was because I had to make a list to be like, okay, which ones did I like the best?
Right.
Maybe I'll pick my 3 favorite honorable mentions. But anyway, before I do that, I'm going to have to pick my third favorite. So this comes from a rap group that I discovered actually only like a couple weeks ago by accident. And, well, okay, I guess I'm going to reveal two of my honorable mentions to preface this anyway.
Okay.
So this hip hop duo called Dueling Experts. This is they're on Mellow Music Group, who, for anybody who's familiar with Mellow Music Group, they remind me of Definitive Jux in the early 2000s. That was the period in the label that really got me into hip hop, as weird as it may sound. I mean, obviously I was into like a lot of the more popular stuff. You know, like I knew Dre and Snoop and Outkast and all that stuff. Missy Elliott, whatever. I liked all that stuff. But the Definitive Jux label, when I first heard like Cannibal Ox's The Cold Vein, Aesop Rock's Labor Days, and what else was on there? Mr. Liffey, Phantom, Murs, and LP and all that stuff. I mean, that really opened the doors. And also Dr. Octagon and Kool Keith. That really opened the doors to a whole nother world of hip-hop that I didn't really even know existed. And Dueling Experts is this duo of Verbal Kent, and I feel horrible because I can't remember the other dude's name. And Verbal Kent is one of the rappers. And a friend of mine, Travis, he sent me the second Dueling Experts album called Sand the Floor, and said you should listen to this because I think this is the type of rap that you'd be into. I listened to it and I was like, yeah, this is my stuff right here. It's kind of got that old school boom bap, but it's also like really lyrical, and also just really like it's the style that I like. It's got that Wu-Tang sort of aesthetic, that underground grimy thing going on a little bit. And then I found out that that was the second record they put out this year, and they actually put out their first record at the beginning of the year, which was Dueling Experts self-titled. So the reason why I'm mentioning this is because Verbal Kent was also part of a hip-hop trio called Iron Wigs. And this trio, I know for a fact, it consists of Verbal Kent, this other rapper named Vic Spencer, and then producer named Sonny Jim. they put out this record called Your Birthday's Canceled, which I think actually just came out like a couple months ago. Like, it's not that old at all. And I discovered it by accident because I think it was on recommendation after I listened to the Dueling Experts records. And I thought, well, okay, I'll listen to it. And I was just blown away. Like, this, the thing is, like, okay, with hip hop, I love rap music, but I'm also very particular about it. I have certain things that, you know, I like about the rap music that I like. You know what I mean? And so, like, you know, like I really, like I said, I really like the lyrical sort of boom bap sort of stuff, the backpack rap, if you will. That's the kind of stuff that I dig. But I also, you know, do like some of that newer stuff, like you mentioned, the Young Lean. I find that kind of stuff, some of that stuff, very interesting as well. The thing that really grabbed me about this release is that the production on it was just mind-blowing. It was very abstract, very psychedelic, a bunch of weird beats. It really has the Mad Villain feel to it, like if you're familiar with like MF Doom and the Mad Villain record and Mad Lib. It really puts me in mind of something that like Mad Lib would have produced, or Jay Dilla, or DJ Shadow, you know, Edan. I mean, all kinds of like, it puts me in mind of that kind of stuff because it's really spacey and weird, and at times it even feels like the beats don't match with the flow, and I think that that's kind of purpose. You know, I think that's done on purpose. Right. I kind of like the off-kilter type stuff anyway. And the other thing that I find really interesting is I think Vic Spencer is British as well. So you got like that sort of British monotone sort of rap that, you know, it you know, and then that is kind of, that's going against like Verbal Kent, who's got a really just in your face, like, you know, Method Man, Ghostface Killah sort of style, like hardcore sort of style of rap. And that sort of like bouncing back and forth of each other, that the lyricism and the way that those guys, you know, play off of each other over the beats that are being made by Sonny Jim is just absolutely outstanding. If you're a fan of the Mad Villain record, if you're a fan of Dr. Octagon, if you're a fan of like any of the 2000s sort of like anti-pop consortium, sort of the weird, you know, like nerdy, I hate to use the word nerdy, but that's kind of what it is, like DJ Shadow, stuff like that. I think that this is the kind of stuff that is free. It really, really puts me in mind of Mad Villain, though. The Mad Villain record, the collaboration between MF Doom and Mad Lib. Psychedelic, experimental. Couple of tracks that really just blew my mind. The Super Crew. And then my favorite track is, I'm probably going to sabotage the pronunciation, but I think it's Bezels and Gazelles. Then there's another one called Rags to Riches. The thing about Bezels and Gazelles that blew my mind, though, is that they like deconstructed this, and I don't know if he's actually sampling like an old like classic rock riff, like a real classic rock riff, or if maybe he's just playing it himself. I don't know, but he like deconstructs this almost like Black Sabbath or Blue Cheer sounding like riff, and then these two guys are just rapping over it. Yeah, I love it, man. This is, you know, the hip hop album of the year as far as I'm concerned, and I mean it's even over like Run the Jewels 4, which I thought was fantastic. Aesop Rock put out a new record called Spirit World Field Guide. Atmosphere, another one of my favorite rappers, put out a new one this year. Public Enemy put out a new record, which I haven't heard, but I heard is really good. And then Vanguard, which is a collaboration between Mr. Lif and again, I feel horrible. I don't remember who the other person is that he's collaborating with on that record, but Mr. Lif was another rapper on Definitive Jux. This is my kind of hip hop. I really like just the weird sort of experimental hip hop, and the thing that I really like about what the mellow music artists seem to be doing is they're kind of keeping a, I don't want to say dying form of hip hop, but it kind of is,
Sure.
at least in terms of what's considered relevant nowadays in hip hop. They're taking this dying form and they're keeping it alive without like this sort of boomer attitude behind it. They're just like, you know what, this is just the stuff that we like, that we're going to put out, and it's available for you if you want it. And if you don't, that's cool. Go listen to, whatever it is that Cardi B or whatever it is that's on the radio, and that's fine. We're not going to judge. You know what I mean? That's kind of the feeling I get from it. Is like this, like I'm glad that there's still like people out there that are keeping that form of rap music alive, because there are still people out there who I think, and even some young kids that want to hear lyricism in rap music. And it's not because, oh, well, I think that stuff is just so much more superior, like back in the day type of bullshit. You know what I mean? Because I used to be like that. You know what I mean? When I was younger, ironically. But now it's like, I don't care. I could care less what the kids are listening to. But I'm just glad there's somebody out there that's catering that kind of music to me. What did you think of Iron Wigs?
I thought it was really cool. I also did not know if these were samples or if these were played in the studio.
Yeah.
A lot of the samples kind of reminded me of, I don't know, like how like Q-Tip maybe would use like really extended samples.
Absolutely.
Like you didn't even know necessarily where the loop happened, because it would be like a long ass part of like a jazz song or something, and you would get kind of lost, And I noticed that in this, the samples are really long, so long in fact that they feel like parts versus a 5-second loop or something.
Right away, when you mentioned Q-Tip, that's a very good comparison. The other thing that comes to mind after you mentioned Q-Tip is Prince Paul.
Right, I was thinking that too. Exactly.
Especially on those first 3 De La Soul records, which to me, the first 4 De La Soul records are 4 of the best hip hop albums ever released.
That's what I've heard from a lot of people. To be honest, I've listened through them maybe only a few times.
Yeah, they're right up there. What I kind of feel like De La Soul were kind of tribes. Well, I mean, they were in the same crew, the Native Tongue, but I kind of feel like they were sort of like the whole Native Tongue crew. Like they needed Tribe Called Quest to be, I guess, accessible.
Yeah.
And then De La Soul were kind of like Tribe's weirder, nerdier cousins.
Yeah. And that's sort of what I got from this was like, it's experimental to a point.
Yeah.
But this is not, I wouldn't put this in experimental hip hop by any means. I would say that it's really well done. It takes a lot of chances. It's super interesting. But at no point was I knocked off the course, if you will.
Yeah, yeah.
Like when you listen to, like you said, Run the Jewels, like the whole thing is you getting knocked off course. The whole thing is you not knowing where you are. And this was not like that. This was super, like, funny at times. I felt like they were doing different voices, almost like characters.
Yes.
It was really strange. But the production was killer. And like I said, I don't even know if these are samples or if they played these parts. and looped them. I could tell that they played some things live over it, like some of the guitar solos were really like off key and almost weenish. Like it was a lot of
Yes.
fun
But
to listen.
in that sense, I would almost say that's where you could say that it kind of is experimental. But I would
Right.
say maybe like a little bit more, maybe a better description instead of experimental would be like just maybe just weird or just like psychedelic, or just
Right.
very strange. Yeah. Again, I would say that this is like, in my opinion, in my estimation, and there's maybe a lot of people out there that would disagree with me here. I think if you're a fan of MF Doom and the production of like those records, especially the Mad Villain record and like Mad Lib's production, this is the type of record that if that's the hip hop for you, this is the type of record for you in like the year 2020. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this is, and that's probably why it grabbed me so far, so quickly. Like, but yeah, no, I could almost see where it had like almost like a ween of hip hop sort of feel to it.
Well, and not that it was novel by any means, but
Right.
just that they're willing to like, how hip hop, a lot of it's just peacocking and posturing and bragging,
Sure.
or like violence and threats. And like, I didn't get that at all from this. Like,
Right.
this was just enjoyable and like light,
Almost
Which
almost like the Beastie Boys or something.
yeah, it was just kind of light, which is rare.
Yeah, very, very rare. And I also just like the weirdness, the oddness, and quirkiness of like, again, like the British guy rapping as well. Like that, you know what I mean? It put me in mind of like just a couple guys getting high on the couch recording rhymes or something. Like it just really has that sort of, and I just generally don't like, I've listened to a lot of British rap and I could never really get into it, but for some reason, whoever this guy is, Vic Spencer, if that's his name, or maybe the British guy's just somebody who guessed a lot on it, I'm not sure. But excuse me. Very, very it works. It works very well with this record.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
All right, so last pick, Eric.
My last pick is also a hip hop record, which is somewhat rare. I would say that anyone that hangs out with me, which now that I think about it, is no one. But like COVID related, it might be other reasons. I don't know. But I don't listen to a lot of hip hop in general, and I would say I had almost no interest in it until a few years ago. I found some chopped and screwed down stuff that I really enjoyed.
Oh, some of that stuff is really neat.
Mostly OG Ron C. And the record Texas Motherfucker specifically. And it actually like influenced a lot of my music listening in general, because as with like a lot of chopped and screwed stuff, it just sounds like it's doing the same thing for like 4 minutes straight, and it's just so slow. But I noticed that they were changing tiny little things throughout the song. Like all of a sudden there would just be, it was almost like dub. It was like there would just be delay on one word, or like the hi-hats would drop for just a second, or whatever, the music would skip or something, like, and you'd have to listen to the song. You'd have to be like 3 minutes in before they just added this sample of like some strings for no reason at all, except that they're just drinking a lot of cough syrup. And I just got so into the production of that I almost started to use that to filter through other things that I listen to. And like the other things I've said tonight, there's elements of that where it's just like, okay, the same thing happens for 4 minutes, and then for some reason this thing happens for 10 seconds, and then we're back to where we were. Like, it just doesn't make sense. With that being said, though, horror rap has always been my go-to, which sort of brings me to my choice, which is the group is Clipping. It's Clipping period. I don't know why there's a period, but it's there. Clipping period. The record is called Visions of Bodies Being Burned. And it is very horror oriented. The weird thing is, though, this isn't the record that got me into them. They have a record called Splendor and Misery that came out in 2016. That is mind blowing. Like, just, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It seems to be like squarely based in like some sort of Afro-futurist story about someone being on a spaceship and how that relates sort of to race in America and the black experience and things like that. So very heady, high concept for hip hop, you know? So when this record came out, I was really surprised at how almost base level horror it is. There was a record before this one called There Existed an Addiction to Blood, which is also horror, and they were supposedly recorded at the same time, and so they're like companion pieces. But this is the one that came out this year. So it's super horror oriented, like unashamedly. They're like, one of the songs is called 96 Nev Campbell, and it's obviously about Scream, you know, and they have samples from horror movies. They reference Witchboard, all kinds of stuff. And that's okay, but a lot of times with horror, you get into this sort of like psychopathic record sort of element, you know?
Right.
Which is okay for what it is, but it's always very cartoonish. It's overly violent. Like, I sort of like my violence to be somewhat serious. I know that sounds stupid, but like, just, it's like listening to Cannibal Corpse. At some point, it's like, okay, we get it. Like, you're being really gross, you know? Like, and so, like, for horror to actually be horror, it can't necessarily only be that way. It has to mix true horror elements in, you know? Like, Evil Dead 2 is an amazingly hilarious movie, but there are scary moments. There are dark, scary sections that you feel like you're kind of losing your mind. So that's how I feel about this Clipping record. There's obviously humorous nods to horror rap. It's very self-aware. But then there's other moments where it's like, for real, pretty disarming and a little bit scary for real. And I enjoyed it a lot. It's very firmly hip-hop, though. I don't want it to sound like, because I know I presented some other stuff that is sort of genre-defying. I would say that this is very much hip-hop, but it does have elements of maybe like power electronics and industrial and even screwed down. Like, there are moments that are very noisy, but I don't think that's the goal. I think they were making a hip-hop record. So the song I really liked is called Body for the Pile, and I like it a lot because, quite honestly, it sounds a lot like Drop It Like It's Hot, which I think is an amazingly produced song. But it also, the makeup of the instrument sounds is very close to like Einstürzen die Neubauten or whatever, like very industrial. And so, yeah, it just has a lot going on, and I think it's something pretty creepy to put on and kind of get nervous to. So,
yeah, it's definitely I would consider this definitely experimental hip hop.
I would too.
This is hands down. You know, I've been listening to a lot of this sort of noise rap, I guess you could say, for I mean quite a while now. I really, really like the production on this album. I love the just the really in your face sort of darkness, and then also at times, like you were saying, just really haunting and disturbing. It's really a record that never really lets up.
Yeah.
It just sort of, it's in your, like, it's almost like a Big Black record in that case or something, you know?
Yeah.
In that way. But it's puts me in mind of sort of like Death Grips,
Sure.
Dalek,
Yeah.
or Dialect, and then also like Anti-Pop Consortium, which
Mhm.
I mentioned with Iron Wigs as well. I
Yeah.
think this is more closer to that than Iron Wigs was. Um,
Yeah.
and then also like I hear a little bit of like maybe even some like Kendrick in there, like Kendrick Lamar and sort of
Sure.
stuff like that. I mean, I agree with you though on your assessment that there's a lot of while there's a lot of other things going on, a lot of noise and experimental, and there's a certain minimalism to it that I think is really attractive as well.
For
Um,
sure. Yeah.
it At the end of the day, I think that they were making a rap record.
Yeah.
That's definitely what I hear. The two songs that really caught my ear, and from beginning to end, this was just a fantastic listen. And I've also heard, I never listened to a full clipping album, but I
Mhm.
have listened to songs.
Yeah.
I've listened to tracks, and I've always been really interested in them.
Hmm.
But I'm glad I took the time to listen to this as a whole body of work, because I think that's exactly what this is. I think it's a whole
Yeah.
body of work that just works together very
I think
well.
so too. And yeah, all their records are that way. Like the Splendor and Misery, I would actually suggest over this one. I think it's just amazing, and it has to be taken as a piece, and that is kind of odd for hip hop in general. I think that
Sure,
these aren't individual songs. This is a record. You
sure,
know,
yes, and that's what I like. I mean, call me a boomer in this instance, but I still am a sucker for the whole album format.
oh
Um,
yeah, absolutely.
but the two songs that really caught my ear are the
Hmm.
same two that you mentioned. Body for the Pile,
Hmm.
absolutely incredible. And I hear the Drop It Like It's Hot comparison.
Right.
It also reminded me of like Missy Elliott too. Like
Yeah, for sure.
the there's a track.
It's got that sort of boom boom that that boom
Yeah, yeah.
boom that that boom, like that kind of rhythm.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
sort of thing. And yeah, I mean, it's the closest the record comes to like a club track,
Right.
you know. Um, but also '96 Nev Campbell. I was just gonna say I love the fact that they named an album or a track after Nev Campbell in the '96 movie Scream, and
And it's a killer track.
it's
It's
such a
oh,
killer track. I mean, yeah, it really is, and yeah, the whole record just works together, man. It's fantastic. I'm actually going to, because of this, I'm going to go back and I'm going to listen to their previous work. Um, yeah, no, clipping, uh, fantastic, fantastic.
cool.
Visions of Bodies Being Burned too. What a great title.
Yeah, it's as heavy as the album, you know?
Absolutely. There was even like an element of like sort of grave diggers, you know.
For sure.
Um,
Yeah, was my first experience with horror rap, and the 6 Feet Deep record is still one of my favorite records ever. Like, I don't even know the lyrics to my own songs, and that is for real. I have to have notes with
sure.
me if I play, but I can pretty much rap all of 6 Feet Deep, and that's sick. So I can't say enough about Gravediggers. I just love them.
Have you ever heard of the rapper Mr. Dead?
Oh, that sounds familiar.
I remember Travis, my friend Travis. For
Yeah.
those of you who don't know, he's like my best friend, and he was in this band called Discarnal Noisebox with me. But anyway, I remember um, we were in Iowa City at the record collector at the old location,
Mhm.
and in the hip hop section, there was this CD from this guy named Mr. Dead, and it was like this guy wearing a mask that he looked like just a really bad. It looked like just a really bad version of Freddy Krueger,
Yeah.
kind of. And he was wearing like a jacket that was very similar to like Michael Jackson in the Beat It video, the red sort of like
Yeah.
thing. And Travis was like, you know what, I gotta get this. And we listened to it, and it was exactly how I described it, like the visuals. It sounded exactly how you'd expect it to sound like. Really like the production was just really funky, but also very dark, you
Yeah.
know, and had
I
like almost like
rap like Freddy Krueger, like in that Jazzy Jeff song.
oh yeah, Nightmare. Oh my, there could be an argument made. There could be a case made for that
Yeah.
being the very first horrorcore rap song.
I would, yeah. I mean, the fact that they sampled or recreated the theme from Nightmare on Elm Street as their bass loop,
Yeah.
pretty big deal, actually.
And
Like,
I think it's actually, that is a very underrated rap beat. That is one of the best rap beats of all time.
it's funky and scary.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many like, God, time is such a weird thing, man. There's so many things when you look back on it. Like always forget that MC Hammer and Vanilla Ice both put out gangster rap records.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, MC Hammer put out the Funky Headhunter, and Vanilla Ice put out Mind Blowin'. Both are very, very. They will blow your mind. Both of them. Not
Really?
kidding. No, I'm not kidding. See, but
right.
here's the thing, man, and this is
I'll check it out.
this is something that's going to get me probably a lot of shit, and I've already expressed this to all my friends, and Travis and I both agree. Vanilla Ice, man, to the extreme,
Yeah.
still a great record.
I don't think I listened to it then, but I'm willing to give it a shot now.
If you want to, man, I'm not gonna recommend it like the Nickelback discography, but for real though, I honestly believe that if Vanilla Ice did not have the record company making him look like the Elvis of rap,
Yeah.
and he just wore like regular clothes or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
because at the time that's what you were supposed to do in hip hop.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that's changed now. Actually, now the Elvis of rap look would probably actually get you credibility.
It might.
Yeah, I mean seriously, when you got rappers like Riff Raff, you know who Riff Raff is?
No, I don't.
Okay, or even I mean, just look at the way that a lot of the emo rappers like dress. You know what I mean? Like they're kind of outdoing each other. I think in the weird.
Oh yeah, I'm seeing Riff Raff right now. Okay, yeah.
So I mean, those guys are actually, like they're not shamed for looking that way now. It's like in the last 5 years, it became acceptable to be that way in rap, and I think that's fucking awesome. Like in a lot of ways, I think you should be able to be as goofy as you fucking want, and it doesn't matter. Of course, you're gonna have the people who are passionate about rap and passionate about hip hop that are saying, well, you're stealing from the culture. Well, there's truth to that. I mean, let's face it. But at the same time, like, cultural appropriation is such a weird topic anyway, because on one hand, yeah, I totally see what you're saying, but on the other hand, there's a lot of things that we wouldn't have that are really good if it weren't for some form of cultural appropriation, Like when it comes to music, when it comes to food, when it comes to all types of things, you know what I mean?
For sure.
Anyway, I don't know why
Yeah, I think there's a difference too, though. Like
there's a total difference.
And I think people can tell the difference.
And
that's
the problem
the big thing.
with Vanilla Ice is that he was actually a culture vulture, like at the time, like in 1990. But a lot of that I don't think was his fault. I mean, if you look at his story, a lot of that was like, hey, we're going to make you a star. You just need to put on this. And he did it. And, you know, it's like...
He's kind of like the George W. Bush of rap.
Exactly, the George W. Bush of rap. But if you actually get past all of that, I mean, Ice Ice Baby, I mean, I think it's a great rap song. There's a lot of people that are going to, like, disagree with me on that.
I think explaining away his use of the sample is one of the best things I've ever heard in my life.
Explaining what now?
Explaining away his use of the Queen sample.
Oh, yeah.
The clip where
where he's like, yeah.
Do.
See, there's not that ting at the end of it. Yeah, that's like...
I love that.
That is fucking awesome. But there are songs on the rest of the record that aren't singles that honestly they wouldn't be out of place on like License to Ill.
Wow.
You know, I mean,
check it out. I'm not even joking.
That's in my opinion though. I mean, this is an opinion, this isn't fact. You might totally disagree with me, Eric.
We'll see. I'm not gonna go into it hating it.
I think that Vanilla Ice could have gotten more respect. I think he's got a lot of respect now because I think he's owned up to a lot of the shit. Like I think now he's just like, you know what? I was a dumb kid. You know, you know, in 1990, you're fucking 20 years old. Some label's going to throw $4 million at you. I mean, come on. You know what I mean? Like
I'd get a pompadour for $4 million.
Exactly. Like I'd cut my hair like Elvis.
If my hair would grow.
I would not steal the Queen sample for $4 million.
Yeah, right.
There's also that story that Suge Knight actually hung him from a balcony.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Yeah, well, actually a lot of that was because apparently one of the producers of Ice Ice Baby was affiliated with Death Row.
Oh, wow.
And he wasn't getting his cut. So Suge Knight said, I'm going to take care of it.
Wow.
But Vanilla Ice, at first he confirmed it. He said, yo, whoa. Yeah, I don't want to mess with Suge Knight. Boy, I was crying like a baby when he hung me up. Then the second time he's like, oh, no, that didn't happen at all. He came into my room and he said, we need the money. And I was like, well, I'm taking care of it. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. I think.
Was Suge Knight in jail when he said it that way?
Yeah, probably. Suge Knight's
now that he's in jail. This is what actually happened.
Suge Knight's still in jail. But the thing is like, I mean, that sort of thing, the days of like people being afraid of Suge Knight, I think, are over anyway. There's far more terrifying people in the world of hip hop than Suge Knight now. There are people that have out Suge Knight.
People in the world too.
In the world as well. But I mean, specifically in hip hop though, you think about some of the characters that have made it big. Like there are people that have out Suge Knight. I mean, seriously, like some of these like big, you know, like there's actually like certain labels that are like, you know, just, I wouldn't want to mess with them. But, you know, there's also other labels that are great, like Mellow Music Group.
Yeah, for sure.
And who knows, maybe they're something to fear too. Who knows? But if they are, then I don't care because, you know, sorry, I'm really getting off topic here.
Vanilla Ice. I think that was his slogan, right?
What was it?
There's always time for Vanilla Ice.
I don't know if it was. I do remember he put out that movie called Cool as Ice.
Oh, yeah.
That's available in full on YouTube for free.
Yeah. I'll watch that and listen to the Extreme.
Dude, there we go, man. And then I would recommend listening to Mind Blowin' and The Funky Headhunter.
Okay.
Oh,
right.
Speaking of people that are scary, I guess MC Hammer was actually really like, back in the day, I guess that he really was like, he was actually like a Blood or a Crip. And I guess like rappers would like diss him in like songs. And, you know, like Q-Tip actually dissed him in a Tribe song. And Redman dissed him as well. And I guess he would actually like walk up to him and like confront him, and he actually had like gang-affiliated bodyguards that were threatening these rappers that are like hardcore rappers. Like, I guess like hardcore rappers actually feared MC Hammer.
Wow.
So
That's scary.
it's weird though to think that like MC Hammer, you can't touch this. Those big old puffy pants. Like I actually tried wearing those one time and tried actually doing that dance.
How did that go?
I mean, people laughed. Still to this day, I don't know if they laughed with me or at me. So I don't know. I thought it was funny, but yeah. Anyways, so
do you want to burn through your honorable mentions?
oh yeah, my honorable mentions. So do you want me to keep it at 3, or do you want me to go ahead and list off all of them real quick?
That's up to you. I'd say if you do 3, you could talk a little bit about them. But
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. I don't actually have anything written down. I just have the list, so I don't really have a lot of details about a lot of them.
Gotcha.
I'm just going to go ahead and burn through them, and then I'll mention like a sentence or two about them. So first off, the Network, Money Money Part 2, We Told You So. I don't know if you're familiar with the Network, Eric.
Nope.
And I don't know if you're not really a Green Day fan, are you?
No, I mean I liked Dookie and
Okay, all right.
Smooth Out Sloppy Hour thing. Nothing really past those first couple
Okay,
things.
all right. So you like the first couple, but anyway, the Network is Green Day's new wave side project.
Wow.
They put out a record in 2003, I think, called Money Money 2020.
Wow.
And then they just put out their second record called Money Money 2020 Part 2, We Told You So. And so it's about 2020. It's pretty interesting. They're both on Spotify. You should check them both out.
We'll check it out.
Actually really good. They kind of sound like if Green Day were in Devo.
Okay.
Next up, Green Day, Father of All, the new record. I thought it was pretty good. I didn't think it was great, but I'm still going to put it on my honorable mentions because it's okay. Green Day doesn't need any sort of introduction, Next up is Dueling Experts 1 and 2. If you're a fan of Iron Wigs, I'd definitely recommend those. A little bit more hardcore, a little bit more grimier than Iron Wigs. King Buzzo from the Melvins put out a solo record called Gift of Sacrifice, which is pretty good. It's got like an acoustic feel to it. Deftones put out a new record called Ohms, which is pretty good. Run the Jewels 4, I thought that was great.
Yeah.
Felt For You, which is a collaboration between Slug of Atmosphere and Murs. They have this super group, this duo called Felt, and this is the 4th record, and they called it Felt For You, the number 4. Atmosphere, The Day Before Halloween. Atmosphere, Slug, one of my favorite rap groups. This one is a really interesting one that I think you would really like, Eric, called Lil.
Yeah, I got some stuff to say about this one. So.
Cool. Lil Lavity. And this is Hella Spiders 666. And I first read about this on, I think it was like punknews.org or something like that. And the description, they described Lil Lavity as sounding like a cross between Latigra and like Death Grips or something.
I can hear that, yeah.
So you heard Lil Lavity before?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, just from you having it on your list.
Okay, all right. I love that record.
It's really good. Yeah.
And then Bad Cop, The Ride. They're a group on Fat Records, which I'm not. Fat Records I have a love-hate relationship with. I like probably about 20% of the bands on Fat Records. Like I like some of the old NoFX stuff. Bad Cop is awesome though. And actually I would recommend the record that came out before this called Warriors. Great record. Aesop Rock, Spirit World Field Guide. Fantastic record. Bomb Pops, Death in Venice Beach. That is another Fat Records group. The Bomb Pops and Bad Cop are two Fat Records bands that I really like. Vanguard, self-titled, fantastic hip hop. Again, Mr. Liff. But back to Run the Jewels 4, man. Until I heard Iron Wigs, I would have said Run the Jewels 4 was the hip hop album of the year.
I thought it was pretty sick. Yeah,
love that record. I'm not a huge, I'll admit, I'm not a big Killer Mike fan on the mic, but in solo, I'm not a big Killer Mike fan. But when he collaborates with LP just brings something out in him that he just, I don't know. I feel like he didn't really have on his own.
Yeah.
Like, for some reason. But LP's production, fantastic.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
So, those are all my honorable mentions.
So, back to Atmosphere.
Uh-huh.
All right. So, let me preface this by saying I have never heard Atmosphere in my entire life.
Okay.
Not once.
Okay.
And now I'm just going to read my notes.
Okay.
It says, Atmosphere, the day before Halloween. This is sick. Love the synths, beats, and vocals. I mean, fucking seriously, why have I never listened to this? I'm adding this to my best of list. I don't give a fuck. And then it says, it receives my highest praise, and this is totally true. My highest praise for anything that I am introduced to. I'm mad at my friends for not telling me about this sooner.
Really?
Yeah. Like, everyone I know should have been like, dude, do you listen to Atmosphere? Like, everything about it is right up my alley.
Dude.
Checks all the boxes.
That's
and I just,
crazy.
Yeah, I loved it. And I seriously thought about adding it to my list, but I was like, well, it's kind of too late, and I'd be sort of stealing. But I couldn't believe how much I loved it.
It's a fantastic record. You've never heard any of Atmosphere's older material?
Nope.
Well,
not one note.
If I were you, I would start with. I would start from the beginning, man. Start with their first album, Overcast.
I'm going to dig right through it.
I'm going to tell you right away. Nothing that they've ever put out is like the day before Halloween.
Oh, okay.
That was a really that was a real surprise to me that they put out that record. Overcast is very boom bap hip hop.
Okay.
Came out in '97. They had another member by the name of Spawn. It is, to me, one of the best records and one of the best hip hop records in the '90s.
Nice.
God Loves Ugly. See, the thing about Atmosphere, and I don't know, are you familiar with Sage Francis at all?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, Atmosphere, Sage Francis, Aesop Rock. You familiar with Aesop Rock?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
All of these rappers in 2000, like the early 2000s, and also the Definitive Jux stuff, they were being labeled as emo rap in the early 2000s because they were the lyrics that they rapped about. It was more emotional, and it wasn't. They weren't trying to be hardcore and thugged out and rap about money and all this stuff. So that was emo rap before then, before what emo rap is now. Like, it's kind of emo rap did the same thing that emo rock did. It started off with bands like Embrace and Rites of Spring. Then it went into like the Midwest emo phase where it was like Promise Ring and Captain Jazz and Get Up Kids and all that stuff. And then it went full on mainstream, and now, like, you know, like Taking Back Sunday has like no resemblance to Rites of Spring at all, you know?
Sure.
But other than the fact that they're both labeled emo. That's kind of like what emo rap did. It kind of started off with like groups like Atmosphere, Sage Francis, or rappers like Atmosphere, Sage Francis, and Idea and Abilities is another one.
Huh.
And they were rapping about more like emotional stuff than, like, hey, I got a shit ton of money, blah, 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 or whatever. I'm going to shoot you up or whatever it is, like they weren't 50 Cent, right?
Yeah, right.
And then somewhere along the line, emo rap eventually evolved into like Lil Peep and like Young Lean, like you mentioned.
Yep.
And stuff like that, where it's like, okay, now emo rap is, like auto-tuned singing, spoken word, stuff like that. It's really interesting when you actually like. So yeah, so like Atmosphere, I don't really believe they were actually emo rap, but according to like a lot of like publications, Atmosphere and Sage Francis and rappers like that were like the first wave of emo rap.
I didn't even know there was such a thing.
Yep.
So
That's
cool.
It's really interesting, but yeah, no, I would definitely, if you like The Day Before Halloween, chances are it's probably going to be your favorite record by them. But I think that you'll like a lot of the other Atmosphere stuff. I mean, so yeah, I would definitely recommend delving into it.
I was glad you put it on the list because
most of it is like really like more straight up hip hop than that record is.
Okay. Yeah, because it's real synthy.
It is. Like, yeah, no. Honestly, when I first heard that, when I heard the first track, I was like, "What the fuck?"
Okay.
Like, it was seriously like that. Then I was like, "Oh my god!" Like in a matter of like, by the time it got to the second track, I was like, "I don't know about this." By the time it got to the fifth track, I'm like, "This is one of the best albums ever." Like, I agree with you actually that it's probably my favorite Atmosphere record since a few years back, because he's been kind of putting out a lot of material, because what Atmosphere is a duo of Slug and then this is kind of funny, but the rapper's name is Slug and the producer's name is Ant. So Slug and Ant.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
Really, really good stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, dude. Like, I'm glad you liked that. That actually
awesome.
Puts a smile on my face that you liked it that much.
Yeah. No, I use the I'm mad at my friends for not telling me about this, because it happened to me a number of years ago. I mean, it must have been quite a few years ago, 10 years maybe. But the first time I ever heard John Cale, Paris 1919, I was like actually furious with everyone that I'd ever talked about music with for not mentioning that album to me. I was just like, I was actually mad. I was just like, I could have been into this 20 years ago.
Right. Yeah, no, that's how I am with a lot of stuff. Like, I mean, Jawbreaker. We'll get into all that stuff.
We'll do that next week.
We'll definitely do that next week for sure. Okay, what else do you got on your...
All right, so my honorable mention, I'm only going to do 3, so I'll expound upon them slightly. So the first one is by an artist called Cindy Lee. The record's called What's Tonight to Eternity. The artist's name is Patrick Blagle, and he's from Canada. But it's very like moody, dreamy, twangy. It's like retro-ish, but not a throwback. It's super noisy. It has a lot of old school elements like string sections, and it's very like 50s pop. But then it's like through a filter of noise and sound, like it's hard to explain. My notes say it's like 50s pop through a low pass filter, or if you heard it from outside of a honky tonk. But that's only part of it. The other aspect of the album is it's also very synthy, like it's almost synth wave at moments, like, and synth wave is a genre basically created accidentally by John Carpenter. So like that Stranger Things kind of arpeggiated synth, Halloween kind of stuff like that that happens throughout the record too. So you go through this like 50s ballady pop stuff, which I'm way into in real life, but then also all the synth stuff, which I'm also way into in real life. So it's really great. I really enjoy it, but it is super noisy.
Right.
So the next one is Ryan Garbus. The tape is called Tabbed View.
Oh yeah, he was in Wet Hair and Raccoon with. Yeah, I always thought his name was Ryan Garbs.
Oh yeah, no, Garbus. Yeah, and I've known Ryan for a long time.
Yeah.
And I've never really heard any of his solo stuff, unfortunately. I'm really bad at listening to people I know, their music.
Sure.
Ask any of my friends.
Sure.
But yeah, it's really amazing. Like, it will probably take me 15 listens to appreciate it fully. There's just endless influences, like, and happening all at once. Like, it'll sound like a steel drum band with Nigerian guitar, like Madhu Mokhtar kind of stuff, which is someone else I got to see because of Feed Me Weird Things. But then there's like garage rock elements, like The Creation or The Who. There's psychedelic pop elements, like 13th Floor Elevators. And then there's like the 60s weirdo electronic synth element, like Bruce Hack or Perry Kingsley. But it's happening all at once, and it's just insane. But it's really pretty and really musical and really accessible. So I can't say enough about that. The song I like on that was called Bag of Bones. I just thought it kind of showed what the record was about. And my last choice was the new Tobacco record, Hot, Wet, and Sassy. Tobacco is a guy, and no one knows his name, but it's Thomas Beck. And no one knows where he's from, but it's Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. And no one knows what kind of synthesizer that he uses, but it's the Cat made by Octave synthesizer. So it's kind of like this fake, unknown musician anonymity, but everyone knows.
Sure. I heard his record he put out a few years back called Fucked Up Friends.
Oh, yeah. That's great.
Aesop Rock is actually on that.
Yeah, and then he did another one called Malibu Ken.
Yeah, with Aesop Rock.
Right, and that one is pretty killer, too.
Yeah, it's badass.
This record, to me, Black Moth Super Rainbow, did I mention that he's the main guy in that? Okay, he's the main guy in that. So,
Tobacco's the main guy in Black Moth Super Rainbow?
Yeah, he's the main dude, like that guy that does all the vocoding and synthesizer parts.
I never knew that. Sorry to interrupt. I never knew that.
Oh, not at all. Yeah. And so Black Moth Super Rainbow was always sort of like pop oriented. I mean, not super accessible, but kind of on the poppier side of things, whereas Tobacco was more of the hip hop side of things. But Black Moth Super Rainbow is no more. And so now I feel like he's bringing everything to Tobacco. I felt like it was like kind of a vaporwave feel to this too. Experimental, it was glitchy, it was trip hop-ish at moments. And if you like Tobacco or Black Moth Super Rainbow, you'll love it. There's nothing surprising here, except that it's all in one now. It feels like he can be hip hop and he can be poppy and he can be tripped out all at the same time. So the song I like on that is actually the single. It's called Babysitter, and it features Trent Reznor. And you should watch the video because it has Falcor from the Neverending Story in it.
Oh, wow.
And it's really good. So
wow.
That's about it.
Okay, well, that concludes our Best of 2020 list, Part 1, the new stuff.
This is a long one.
This is a long one. We're at 2 hours and 21 minutes. Remember when we were like, I think we can make it 40 minutes or less?
Yeah.
We haven't even touched the old stuff yet. So we're already. So yeah. I'm just gonna let. Man, these two are just. We're just gonna roll it, however long it takes. What the heck?
Yeah.
It's the end of 2020, and
You can always pop it, come back to it.
yeah,
We'll still be
yeah.
here.
We deserve to be happy about music we discovered, and we deserve to talk about all this stuff after the year we had.
I think you're right. Yeah, good call.
So
And if you don't like it, eat shit.
that's looking good.
Just kidding.
Or
You don't
drink-
deserve it.
Or drink. Don't. Yeah, there you go. I was gonna follow that up with something, and then I realized that I had nothing to follow it up with. Anyway, so that happens a lot. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening. We will see you next week for part 2, which is going to be the stuff that Eric and I discovered that we hate all of our friends for not telling us about earlier.
That's right.
All right, you guys all take care. Have a happy new year. We'll see all. Well, I guess we won't see you, but you will hear us in 2021. Take care, everyone.
Bye.